Hello everybody, welcome to thefakebaseball.com. This is Greg Smith running you through another draft video. And today we're drafting on Yahoo, so we'll check out their interface. I haven't noticed a whole lot different from last year, the software, this interface they have going on. Unfortunately, it seems like we have a lot of auto drafters in this particular draft, and if it ends up being a little too boring or I don't know, obvious with the picks that are being made because of auto pick, then I might just scrap this and save my draft video editing time for a more relevant one with a full league. But we'll see how it goes to start. This is round one, obviously, and Trout went over Cabrera 1 and 2, and Braun went third. I think that's pretty typical of what I've seen in most drafts this year. The hot, sexy pick of Trout, like the younger player. He's the guy that most people want at number 1. Cabrera tends to go 2. I've seen Braun go at 2 and Braun go at 1, but usually it's Trout or Cabrera at 1, and it's usually Trout. After those three guys, Cano, Kemp, and Pujols were each selected, and then Posey went. And God, just leave the catchers be, people. I don't get it. I don't see why anyone would want to take a catcher with their first pick. I understand Posey had a great year last year, but I mean, I'm a Giants fan too. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Buster Posey. It's just not a pick I would make in fantasy. Then Andrew McCutchen and Joey Votto went. I have the 11th pick, so there's one pick more before I come up here. I'm going to go by the Fake Baseball consensus rankings this week, and at the top of our list right now is Prince Fielder, then Troy Tulowitzki. Giancarlo Stanton and Clayton Kershaw are at the top of the Yahoo list. I should note that because this is a Yahoo league, there are only 3 outfield spots we have to fill, and no corner, no middle infielder. So position scarcity is a lot less of a priority. So taking Prince Fielder here at first base is fine. I don't know who I have rated higher. Let's check. I have Tulowitzki behind Fielder, myself. Yeah, I don't see anybody else that I have rated higher in my own rankings, and in the staff rankings, this is also the pick I've been making. So, Prince Fielder, welcome to the team. We'll watch the wheel here, see who the auto picker. Oh no, he's not an auto draft. See who the guy at the end here takes. Hopefully, he leaves me one of these outfielders. I'd like to get Stanton or Upton with my second pick. If not, I'd gladly take Tulowitzki. Now, the pitchers are at the top of the Yahoo ranks here. Kershaw, Verlander are at 11 and 13 overall by Yahoo's rankings. We have both of those guys further down. We have Verlander at 17, Strasburg at 21, and then Kershaw comes in at 23. So needless to say, we probably won't end up with any of those 3 guys just based on our consensus rankings. Speaking of Steven Strasburg, he was just selected 12th overall. So that's a bit of a curveball. We'll see what he does with his second pick. Oftentimes when people take that pitcher early, they're setting themselves up to take 2 of the elite starters early and go for that draft strategy, which I'm not a fan of. But I guess in a league like this, where there are fewer outfield positions, there's no corner infield, there's no middle infield, it's probably easier to find bargains for the position players, first base, second base, third base, shortstop, even outfield, than it is to find bargains at. I mean, it's still easy to find bargains in pitching, but it's to get elite talent. It's a little tougher. I'm going to take Tulowitzki with my second pick here. I'm just going to count up the number of auto drafters here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's only 4. One trick I like to do is assume that they're all picking off of the standard Yahoo ranks, that they didn't pre-rank their players. And knowing that there are 4 auto drafters, we know that the top 8 picks are not going to be there when it gets back to us. That's probably the case anyway because we're picking so far down in the draft order. But Stanton, Kershaw, Verlander, Bautista, Tulowitzki, Beltre, Reyes, Harper, and Pedroia will all be gone. And I went 9 there because I'm going to take Tulowitzki. Yep, welcome to the team, and I'll resume in a moment when we're closer to our next 2 picks. Okay, rounding out the second round after I took Tulowitzki were Giancarlo Stanton, Jose Bautista, Clayton Kershaw, Justin Verlander, Jose Reyes, Adrian Beltre, Bryce Harper, Dustin Pedroia, Felix Hernandez, and Evan Longoria. Justin Upton was the first pick of the third round. So we're looking at a about 9 picks again before we come up here. The top of the staff rankings is Adrian Gonzalez, and he's pretty far down here in the Yahoo rankings, so it's possible he'll make it to us. I'm not totally sold on that. Let's see where he actually winds up. Adrian Gonzalez is down here at 47 overall, behind guys like Alan Craig, Paul Goldschmidt, Billy Butler at first base, among Edwin Encarnacion and these guys that are higher. Gonzalez also has dual eligibility in Yahoo leagues at first base and outfield. I really like that, especially in a league like this where if you look at the teams, you can kind of finagle different lineups if you have a couple bats on the bench where Gonzalez moves from first base to outfield, so you can accommodate maybe an extra first baseman. It's not like that flexibility doesn't matter as much in a league like this with 2 utility spots, but if you're in a league that only has 3 outfield spots, 1 first base spot, and maybe only 1 utility, that kind of flexibility goes a long way. It's still helpful in a league like this or in deeper leagues, but it's a little more helpful in a league where the rosters are a little more shallow and maybe the league is a little deeper, like 14 teams, etc. Who else has been drafted here? Let's take a look. After Justin Upton, Jared Weaver, David Price, Edwin Encarnacion were selected. Encarnacion's an interesting player. He's usually going in the 3rd or 4th rounds of most drafts I've seen, and the potential for 40 home runs is sweet. The fact that he can steal double-digit bases is also very nice. The other thing that you got to like about him is that new revamped Toronto offense. I think that Encarnacion could be the type of player that we'll be discussing as a late 1st, early 2nd round pick next season in drafts, and this year you can get him at the price of a 3rd rounder or a 4th rounder depending upon where you draft and what your league's like. After Encarnacion was selected, David Wright was taken, and he's a guy I'm kind of staying away from for the most part. I really like David Wright. I like his game. I like what he puts up in fantasy, but as far as these injury concerns every year, they don't seem to go away. He's having oblique issues now, it sounds like, and I'm kind of terrified to select him. With that said, I'm about to jump on Adrian Gonzalez if he makes it to me, so I'm just being irrational about it. Who knows? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5 picks left before I come up here. Let's see what this guy on the clock is working with. He has Pujols and Reyes. Putting myself in his shoes, I don't really know. I mean, at the top of the Yahoo ranks, you got Kinsler and Yoenis Cespedes. Ryan Zimmerman's there. He took Adrian Gonzalez. Okay, nice pick, buddy. He must be a reader. Taking all the best fake baseball players. Now, that's got me thinking about an outfielder or maybe some other position player. I'm still not really interested in pitching. The top of our ranks are Ian Kinsler, Jason Hayward, Adam Jones, Jay Bruce. This is definitely the curse of drafting at the end of a 12-team draft, in that your 3rd round pick is definitely a little sketchier than the people who get to pick at the top of the draft. That said, I don't think Kinsler is a bad value here. I've seen him go in the 2nd round of enough drafts to make me think that if he's available, which he's not because he was just selected. So the top of our rankings, Jason Hayward. After that, Adam Jones, Jay Bruce. So it's an outfielder. Hayward's at the top of our rankings. Let's see who I have. Okay, so Hayward I've got at 25. I've got Jones at 23. I mean, they're so close that I'm just going to go with the guy that we have ranked higher because I'm going by these rankings today. And I like to do this every once in a while where you look at other rankings than your own just to kind of put yourself in perspective to see where you might be overvaluing or undervaluing somebody. If I were drafting like in a personal league with my buddies, I would have taken Adam Jones there. But in this case, I don't mind taking Jason Hayward. He's close enough in my mind to what Jones is going to offer fantasy-wise that I don't mind having a team that's slightly different than what I would have drafted every other time. It's good to diversify your fantasy bonds in this case. So the guy at the wheel here has got 2 in a row. He's using one of those picks on Ryan Zimmerman. 3rd base, 2nd base, still looking kind of interesting here. We've got Adam Jones, Bruce, Holiday, Cole Hamels, Cliff Lee, Jacoby Ellsbury, Hanley Ramirez at the top of our rankings. That Hanley Ramirez ranking might be based strictly upon me not having updated my rankings in a while. It's possible he should be further down, and I think he should. Like, I'm not going to take him here. The other thing to talk about when it comes to picking at the end of the draft like this, the beginning or the end really, is that sometimes you can't go strictly by the rankings. Sometimes you need to take a position that you think might not come back to you. In this case, third base is not something I like to wait too long on. But I'm not going to take Sandoval here. Armis Ramirez, Brett Laurie, Martin Prado. Like, it gets kind of ugly after the first couple rounds. It's possible I should have spent this second round pick on, I don't know, Longoria or Beltre, because I like more of the value shortstops later in the draft. The wheel person took Gio Gonzalez to go with Ryan Zimmerman, so it looks like he's just a dedicated Nationals homer with Strasburg, Zimmerman, Gonzalez. Anyway, we're looking at these players here. Now, the question is, do I want to jump on a position other than outfield? Because those are the guys I have ranked highest right now. You could make a debate for taking a pitcher, but there are no second baseman or third baseman high enough up these rankings that makes me want to break rankings, like go away from who we have ranked the highest. So I'm going to take Jones, and we'll rejoin the draft in the 5th round. After the Adam Jones pick, Cole Hamels, Jay Bruce, Cliff Lee, Billy Butler, Jacoby Ellsbury, B.J. Upton, Matt Holliday, Alan Craig, Craig Kimbrell, Paul Goldschmidt rounded out round 5, and to start off rounded out round 4, excuse me. So to start off round 5, Aroldis Chapman and Adam Wainwright were selected. We're down to just 3 auto-drafters now, and I think it changed. I think some people who weren't auto-drafting before are auto-drafting now. There were only 2 for a moment there, so I think people are coming in and out of the draft. Maybe they're drafting from work or something. So that's good. I'm probably going to keep rolling with the video. We got 5 picks before I come up here in the 5th round. The top of our rankings have Hanley Ramirez, but that's not going to be my pick. Madison Bumgarner is the real top of our rankings, and he would be a fine pick here. I actually have never owned him before because I usually devalue pitching, and yeah, I try to avoid players on my favorite team, as it may have been apparent with that Buster Posey rant earlier. But if he's available here, I'll snap him up. I still need a second baseman and a third baseman. The top second baseman we have ranked is Brandon Phillips. Ben Zobrist is pretty close here, and he's the player I would actually select if I was going to take a second baseman with one of these 2 picks, if only because he has the added flexibility of shortstop and outfield, and he is a player I have ranked higher than Phillips in my own rankings, and that's one I feel relatively strongly about. With that said, second base is not something I'm super concerned about right now, if only because there are so many viable players here between the aforementioned Zobrist and Phillips. There's also Jason Kipnis, Aaron Hill, who I like a lot, Martin Prado, and Jose Altuve all kind of waiting in the wings. So I'm almost certainly not going to take a second baseman with the first of my 2 picks here, because I'm pretty sure this guy is not going to take both of like the 2 best ones I want, per se. With 2 auto-drafters coming before us, it's unlikely that Bumgarner is going to make it to us, or Zobrist, if these people are going by the Yahoo rankings. Although, yeah, it doesn't matter. Sometimes if the positions fill up, like if they had their second baseman, shortstop, and all their outfield spots filled up, it wouldn't select Zobrist for them. It'd take somebody for a different position in their roster. But both of these guys have enough openings at either shortstop or outfield or starting pitcher that Bumgarner and Zobrist are likely not going to be available when I'm picking. So then it's down to some of these other guys. Like I said, I'm not going to take Phillips if he's there. If Chris Sale is there, you know from my previous video that I'm all in on Sale. He's one of my favorite young pitchers in fantasy baseball, and he would be a fine pick here. And he's probably who I would select ahead of a second baseman. But we'll see what happens. Let's take a look at this guy picking right now. This is the guy who took Posey in the first round, and after he took Posey, he took Billy Butler, Verlander, and Kane. Probably not in that order. And he just took Bumgarner, so this is a Giants homer we're drafting with. Great. The Kane, Bumgarner, Posey special. Let's see. I kind of forgot to recap the rest of these picks. Recently, the picks have been Chapman, Wainwright, CC Sabathia, R.A. Dickey, Yu Darvish, Joe Mauer, Bumgarner, and then Zobrist went with one of those auto picks. So the next player to go from auto pick is Pablo Sandoval, and the player who's selecting now. And this guy has Votto, Starlin Castro, Jose Bautista, and Jay Bruce. Now that's a start I can get behind. It very much mirrors the start that I have with a first baseman, a shortstop, and two outfielders. But all of these players are players that I would love to have on my team, and I'm sure they were drafted in the appropriate draft position. It looks like this guy is just drafting as me because he just took Chris Sale. So that puts us in kind of a weird position here. Now we're looking at Brandon Phillips, Matt Latos, Brett Laurie as the top of our rankings. And I do like Latos. I've never really owned Laurie, although I don't mind that pick so much right here. I need a third baseman. All that stuff I said about what's his name on the Blue Jays earlier makes me think that Laurie is probably going to have a good year if he bats somewhere in the middle of that lineup, which I'm assuming he will. And I can either take a pitcher or a second baseman with my next pick. And that would either be Aaron Hill or... yeah, probably Latos. Let's see. This guy has a third baseman. He does not have a second baseman. So if I want a second baseman here, I should take that first. Looking at the second baseman, Hill is definitely the guy I like the most out of all these players. With that said, I need to ask if I want to take a pitcher here. I think I'm going to wait on pitching even longer than normal. I'm going to take Hill, and then next round, hopefully I'll take Laurie if he's still there. I'm assuming this person at the wheel will not take another third baseman before a first baseman or another outfielder. Yep, he took Rios with one of his picks. I like that pick. Rios is a guy that I think has a pretty good value this year as a player you can get in the 5th or 6th round and who might put up stats that are, I mean, they won't be Justin Upton desired numbers, but it's possible that Rios and Upton will have the similar enough stats to the point where the person who took Upton will be pissed, and the guy who took Rios will be like, oh, that worked out pretty well. Anyway, after Rios, what does this guy need? He's got 2 pitchers. He kind of needs more infielders. I wouldn't be surprised if he took a closer here, though, or just another starter. Seems like one of those type of fantasy players. So yeah, let's look at the third baseman again. The argument against Laurie here is that we can wait and get somebody like David Freese, Mark Trumbo, Mike Moustakas, even Todd Frazier later in the draft. But considering we have 2 utility spots to fill as well, I'd rather think of those other players as utility guys and take a third baseman now. The only other option is an outfielder, which is someone in the Desmond Jennings level. He's the top-rated outfielder on Yahoo and in our staff rankings. I guess I could consider him because of the speed that he would provide, and we're not super speedy. We have some stolen bases from Jones, Hayward, and Hill, but nobody who's really going to get a lot of steals. With that said, steals tend to be pretty easy to find a little lower in the rankings. Let's look at third baseman again here. Laurie will steal a few bags too. That helps. I don't think I'm taking a pitcher. I think I'm going to take a bat here. And it boils down to Jennings or Laurie. So the other outfielders available kind of further down. There are a number. I don't think I'm going to take Jennings here, if only because I'm pretty sure I could get Carlos Gomez with one of my next 2 picks if I wanted to. Now, with that said, I might need to spend both of those picks on pitching, so I should probably prioritize what I want here. Now, we're going to go with the rankings. I'm going to take Laurie. Even though he's actually below Latos on our rankings, I think I'm going to wait on pitching, as I am typically slated to do when I do fantasy drafts. But we'll be back in a moment for round 7.